Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I am Templar, and welcome to the Order. Now for this video on Forgotten History, I will be talking about, well, what is the history behind the Confederate flag? Or, in this case, what does the Confederate flag represent? Now, in truth, I can pretty much already hear many of you already, Templar, this flag is racist! This flag is racist! And you shouldn't put this on here! Literally, I can hear a bunch of baby whinies technically doing this for no dang reason, just to waste time for a lot of us. Now in truth, many of you might in the process put a hate speech that you would pretty much have copied and pasted on the comment area, but let me tell you this. Before you start doing that crap, you might want to understand history before you starting to, well, do something stupid that you will end up regretting. Now, in truth, this type of form in history we have to understand. So what does the Confederate flag represent, you might ask? Well, in truth, the Confederate flag does represent something. But one thing it does not represent is hate. It does not represent slavery. It does not represent hatred. It does not represent racism. So what does it represent? Well, in truth, we have to understand the facts about it. In truth, this type of flag, and now many of you might not understand, this is a Confederate battle flag. This is the Confederate national flag. Two difference, huge difference. In which, here's a funny thing, because many of you don't understand, but many of you don't understand that the Confederate national flag, many of you don't realize this is a Confederate flag. Many of you just think this is the only Confederate flag. But in truth, the South had billions, and I mean millions of Confederate flags. Metaphorically speaking, but there are tons of them in which that I can pretty much fill an entire house with. In which we have one from Texas, we have ones from North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky. As well, we even sometimes have them from Missouri. But you get to my point. What the hell is with all these dang flags? Okay, that's better. Now, in truth, we have to understand the facts about the Confederate flag. Now, I want to pretty much talk about the Confederate battle flag in general. Why do I want to talk this about in general? Well, in general term, the Confederate flag is not a racist symbol, no. It is not a symbol for hatred, it's not a symbol for white supremacy, it's not a symbol for slavery. And before you all start saying, but Templar, it flew over slavery. No, that will be the Confederate national flag that flew over slavery. And it only flew over slavery for, which is the shortest amount of time, compared to Rome, compared to the British Empire, compared to France, compared to Spain, compared to the United States. You see my point? Slavery technically exists a lot longer than it did in the American Civil War. And also another thing, there still technically is slavery after the American Civil War in other countries. So you might want to rethink this before you start, well, swearing off against a flag that of which you don't know anything about. Just because you think it's a good idea to join a movement doesn't mean it's going to end well for you in the later long run. In fact, you'll pretty much be an outcast to society. Yeah, kind of like these people. Anyways, so why am I describing this to you right now? Well, because of the modern media and such, and as well I've been seeing people going as well as to tear down statues of history, kind of like what the Nazis would have done. That's right, I'm talking to you little fuckwits. Rethink your idiotic strategy. Just because you don't like the statue doesn't mean you have the right to tear it down. Now, in truth, I'd like to talk to you all about this because we have to right our wrongs before it's too late. In fact, why do I mean by this? Here's the thing. If we keep tearing down history, the more we will not learn from it. And in doing so, we will in the process repeat it again and again. So, who wants to do that stupid part? Anybody? Anybody? I don't think so. Now, in truth, the Confederate flag is not a symbol, as I stated, for racism or any type of such that of which it's accused of, but of which it's actually a symbol of against big governments. Now, that's just the modern idealistic term for it. Now, why do I say big government? Well, in truth, the South was fighting for multiple terms of reasons. For example, Texas was fighting for its freedom. Virginia was just fighting because of the fact, well, they don't want to actually fight against their neighbors. And as well, pretty much, many other states were fighting for against trade rights. Missouri, though, they were fighting because of the fact of what the Union did to their own farmsteads. Yeah, nice going, Yanks. It pretty much just destroyed your own allies. Now, in truth, that's my point. The American Civil War wasn't never about slavery. In fact, it was only like 1 to 3%. And the majority of and which, actually, this is really funny, many people don't realize, but the only Confederate forces in the American Civil War that did own slavery, or forms of slaves, actually was 1 to 3%, or mostly just 3%. And that's saying something. So, the 3% you're getting after, but not the rest of the army. That's kind of like we're saying that all white people are racists, or all black people are thugs, or this and that. You see my point? It's a stereotypical idiocy, that of which we as American citizens have accidentally mislabeled with the Confederate flag. In fact, this flag right here is not a racist symbol, but we nowadays believe it's a racist symbol for one big reason, and I will get to that very soon. Now, in truth, I want to first talk to y'all about what it means. What does it represent? Well, it's kind of like this. Remember the Don't Tread on Me flag? It's a symbol against tyranny. Kind of like what the American flag was to the British flag. Meaning that, well, we're no longer going to deal with England, so let's just become, well, this and stand against it. In fact, technically, that's also the same with Texas and Mexico. That's the same with pretty much Native Americans with the Oklahoma flag against the United States, because, yeah, many natives still hate the U.S. Which, I kind of have to agree with them what happened with Grant when he technically massacred innocents. That's right, I'm looking at you. Wait, what the hell are you still doing here? Go! Get out of here! You really gotta hate that guy sometimes. Now, in truth, though, I do want to actually explain this to you all, because the Confederate flag I do hold in my, well, flag area, of which I like to talk about history, and technically I will be adding more flags to it, yes, very soon. Probably mainly Australia or something like that, depending on where my viewers are from, because I like to hear your comments of where y'all are from, so I can add to it. Anyways, let's get back to the subject at hand, shall we? Now, in truth, I want to explain this. Now, why is the Confederate flag that type of same version to the, well, said American flag? Well, in truth, it's technically a type of representation off of the said Don't Tread on Me. Problem is, technically, if you put the Don't Tread on Me, it's kind of hard to actually explain. Why? Well, in truth, there are many states that actually did do that, but the thing is, well, the manufacturing cost in making it, in which many Southerners didn't actually, or couldn't actually do that. They actually had to make all this type of, well, flags by hands most of the time. In fact, this actually flag, the Confederate battle flag, is actually based off of the St. Andrew's Cross from Scotland. Look at this. They're identical. In fact, this is a Confederate Scottish version that was made in Scotland, literally, and was sent over to the United States. Now, this is really cool, because this is a Confederate flag. So, many of you might start saying, so, wait, is this supposed to represent something, or, well, in truth, yes. In truth, we have to understand that this flag was actually copied and manufactured by Scottish immigrants here in the United States. They looked to their ancestral flag of the St. Andrew's Cross, especially seen as though the Scots did not like the British. And as which, many Scots and Irish actually did fight for the South a little more than they did for the North. So, yeah. Now, though, I hear many of you already, but, Templar, isn't this flag still a form of racism? No. Just because it's used by a racist group doesn't mean it's a racist symbol. Hell, in fact, if that was true, then the swastika would be viewed as a racist symbol, when in truth, it's actually been used by a multitude of cultures. Not just Nazi Germany, but including even many parts of Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, well, even Islam, and as well even, well, Judaism, and including even Native Americans had their symbols, as well ancient pagan cultures had their symbols here in Europe, and as well also in Asia. As well, even people of Africa had this symbol. In fact, it was a symbol meaning for the sun and the gods. So in truth, I'll be talking about that some other time. Now, in truth though, why does this symbol have the same misunderstanding? Well, kind of obvious. You have to misunderstand it just from looking at a part of bad history. Now, in truth though, the Confederate flag did fly on the battlefield, but it was a symbol against tyranny, in which many people in the South viewed it that way. Or in this case, rural country folk. Yeah, that's right, most of the Confederate Army was mostly made out of country folk, not made out of city folk like they were in the North. In fact, many Southerners and Northerners that fought in the American Civil War, many of those that actually fought on the Confederate side were of rural country folk, but those that fought aside pretty much fought on the Northern side were pretty much mostly either city folk or as well criminals, as well as draftees, and so on. Of which, if none of y'all believe that, here's the thing, take a look at the New York draft riots, and you'll understand why that's true. Now, I do actually want to explain to y'all, why is this flag a symbol of racism? Now, well, in truth, that's actually kind of obvious. Take a look at this image. That's right, you're looking at the Ku Klux Klan. These idiots are probably the most dumbest people in history. Now, before you start saying, oh, Templar, you're just saying that so you can get away with it. Here's the thing. I'm not a fan of the Ku Klux Klan. In truth, I'm Catholic, and these guys are Protestants, and they would kill me if I was. In fact, most of their majority are Protestants, or so I'm told, I don't know, but here's the thing, I don't like the Ku Klux Klan at all. In fact, in Texas, we kind of like to shoot them. In fact, this actually became a law in actually 1969, I believe it was. I'm not so certain, but I can't remember. Anyways, in truth, Texans are more majority of a people that actually fight against a form of tyranny. And in truth, we actually even uphold the form of the Confederate flag at Six Flags still to this day because, well, it's part of history. In truth, we technically don't view ourselves as part of the Confederate government at all, or as well part of the Union government still, but in truth, we did fight alongside them. However, due to rewriting of history, we can't exactly state anything. So, yeah. Now, in truth, though, you might start asking, but Templar, does this flag have a form of history to it? What does it mean? Well, as I stated before, it does mean the form of against a type of form of tyranny, like the Don't Tread on Me flag. And as well, it actually has inspiration from the Scottish flags. Now, in doing so, these flags do have a good form of it. So, in truth, they manufactured it into this. Now, before you start saying, here's the thing. I wanted to actually explain this a little while ago, but here's the thing. There should only be 11 stars on this flag because, here's the thing. Another 2 flag for the 13, those 2 stars were pretty much supposed to be Kentucky and Missouri. However, they never officially stated themselves as Confederates, and as well, never truly actually seceded from the Union. And in truth, they actually were just fighting with the South because of the war crimes America was committing. So, I'll just leave that for y'all. Now, I hear many of you already. Templar, why did the Confederacy actually turn from the Confederate national flag and just use it on the battlefield and just start using this as a battle flag? Well, in truth, the reason is kind of obvious. If you don't understand, here's the thing. Let's remove the Confederate battle flag and put in the Union flag, for example. Now, here's the thing. Many of you might start saying, Templar, these look nothing alike. Well, here's the thing. Yes, that's true. But if you put on a smoky battlefield, for example, filled with cannon fire, and as well you have a bunch of, black powder smoke everywhere, here's the thing. It's going to be kind of hard to tell friend from foe in this part, especially at the Battle of First Manassas, when in truth, both sides were wearing red and, pretty much, wearing a multitude of colors. In fact, there was blue, gray, black, red somehow, which I don't know how that's even possible, but still, you see my point. In fact, you see why they had to remove this, so that way it looked more like this on the battlefield. That way they didn't accidentally kill their own allies. So, yeah, you can see the problem there. Now, many of you might not wonder this, but in truth, you might wonder, well, Templar, how come we now believe that this flag is a symbol for racism? Well, in truth, that's the thing. It's not a symbol of racism. In truth, this is actually because of the 1960s, especially 100 years after the American Civil War ended. Now, what was happening in that timeline, you might ask? Well, here's the thing. The Civil Rights Movement. Now, why do I say the Civil Rights Movement? And I hear you maybe already, yeah, but this is a racist video. No. In truth, here's the thing. The Sons of Confederate Veterans actually marched with Martin Luther King. In fact, Martin Luther King even stated the following states a symbol, stating that the Confederate flag was not a symbol of racism, but of which was a symbol against a tyranny that of which they believed. Now, those are technically a modern in-production words for it. However, in truth, that's a big point. And as well, guess who was against the civil rights movement? The Ku Klux Klan. The Klan had the Confederate flag, but see, here's the thing. There's more than one version of the Klan. In fact, I'll have to do another video on them, maybe. I don't know, because every time I try and do a video on them, I just feel as though I want to shoot myself in the foot. Because, yeah. Anyways. In truth, we have to understand why the Klan did this. In truth, they believed that the Confederate flag was a racist symbol. However, in the 1930s, a letter or message, or telegram you want to put it, was actually sent from none other than Adolf Hitler to the Ku Klux Klan leadership at the time and the neo-Nazi movement here at the time, which none of y'all understand. America technically went into a deep Nazi movement during the 20s and 30s, and luckily for Pearl Harbor and Germany declaring war on us, oh man, that technically made many neo-Nazis here in America get their asses kicked. But in truth, those guys were actually part of the Ku Klux Klan. And the hilarious thing is, this message that was sent by Adolf Hitler to the Ku Klux Klan leadership stated the following, that the reason he will not use the Confederate flag in his marches is because it is not a symbol for white supremacy over those, but of which is actually a symbol against tyranny, that of which he was fighting against. Now, many of you and I don't understand that. Well, it's true. This was the message was technically in German, and this was re-messaged, or in the process, it was, I want to view it as to say, accidentally mislabeled. In other words, it was misinterpreted by the Ku Klux Klan, who didn't know a lick of German. Now, here's the thing though. Adolf Hitler put this in Austro-German, and unfortunately, it was supposed to say the following, that the Confederate flag is not a symbol of any form of German white supremacy, or as well any form of white supremacy over that of other races or governments, but of which is a symbol of meaning of against tyrannical rule. Now, if you don't understand what that means, here's the thing. That's the same thing that Adolf Hitler was wanting. He was wanting a tyrannical rule, meaning a dictatorship, meaning big government, and of which he stated the following: the Confederate flag wasn't that. So, in truth, it was a flag that was against it. Which is kind of freaking hilarious, because this flag is meant to be a symbol against tyranny, and yet modern people today mislabel it because of the Ku Klux Klan. In fact, the Ku Klux Klan, if now you don't understand, these idiots pretty much caused a massive problem for the flag. It doesn't help out due to the fact that every other symbol they use, especially the Burning Cross, which is Scottish, the shield they have is Vikingish, and as well, the robes they're wearing are actually from a brotherhood in Spain, who of which actually find it a sin to actually reveal their face to the outside world, and of which are part of the Catholic Church. And here's the thing, most of these people are Protestants in the Ku Klux Klan. That just is hilarious. I mean, this is just too damn funny. In fact, Tom Hanks actually makes this very good point in his video on the symbols and history. I remember, I think it was it was something to do with the Mona Lisa. I best bet it was technically on the Holy Grail. I can't remember the whole movie's name, but yeah, you see my point. Now, in truth, I did like that movie, but you see my point about this. It actually gives us a good example. Why? Well, because symbols are used over and over, and unfortunately, because of idiots, they are mislabeled, and unfortunately, well, the opposite thing happens. And in truth, the Confederate flag is not a racist symbol, is not a symbol for, well, killing blacks. It's not a symbol for this or that. And here's the thing. I was part of the Sons of Confederate Veterans myself. In truth, I wasn't able to stay with them due to the fact well, had business and work and such, but you see my point. Now, in doing so, though, I did back when I was a reenactor, I did actually take part in the Confederate battles that my grandfather fought in the American Civil War, and here's the thing, he was part of the 4th Texas Infantry, in which Texas was fighting for its independence. In fact, it was the reason why they kept fighting even after the war ended. But if y'all want to understand that, why Texas fought in the war, I will leave a link down below for y'all so understand this. Now, I hear many of you already, Templar, why did you make this video? Well, in truth, I wanted to. I needed to. In fact, I didn't technically want to myself, but I knew I had to because of the fact, well, seeing the fact that America's getting torn up and destroying statues of history and as well burning flags for no damn reason, even though they don't know a damn thing about it, here's the thing. Yep, I'm going to have to reveal that. In fact, I've actually gotten a massive amount of comments on here about the Confederate flag I use. In truth, that's the thing. Only a few people understand history to understand it's not a racist symbol. Now, hopefully this video helps y'all out to understand history, especially many of y'all that don't actually understand this. But unfortunately, though, I have to explain this. Now, in truth, I didn't want to, because here's the thing. If you don't believe this, be my guest. But in truth, you have to understand this. Hell, look up why this flag is not a racist symbol. Don't just believe the symbol of the Ku Klux Klan holding a Confederate flag. Hell, that would technically be like, say, for example, well, you're technically attacking a Buddhist monk just because he has a swastika around his neck, not because he believes in Nazism, but because he believes in the ancient ways of Buddhism. In fact, if none of you understand, in the year of 2001, I believe it was, a high school student, a white high school student for that example, shaved his head and as well wore a swastika around his neck, showing that he was a Buddhist monk. However, due to the clothing regulations, he could not wear his Buddhist robes, and in doing so, he was attacked by a group of black students. Yeah, that did not end well for him. In fact, it stated he was hospitalized and later died the following 2 days later. So, you gotta understand, guys, you gotta understand history before you do anything stupid. Here's the thing. Many of you might not understand this, but history has been written by the victors for so many times that of which we don't even understand it. Now, in truth, I will be doing more videos on such as forgotten images or forgotten items in history. Now, in fact, I'll probably have to do the Ku Klux Klan or the Nazi symbols very soon. Oh, God, wish me luck on that one. Because let me tell you this, I think I might end up shooting myself in the foot with my cousin's revolver. Anyways, guys, hopefully you liked this video. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to cover anything in history. As well, let me know their countries, and as well I could add it to the flag wall, for example. And hopefully y'all can actually see our next videos upcoming soon. And I will be happy to hear any type of things you want me to talk about. And as well, also check out our Facebook. I will leave a link down below in the description. Anyways, like and subscribe, and as well click the bell button for more notifications. Anyways, guys, it's been Templar. Have a great day.